Bismillah, alhamdulillah. One of the five primary objectives of Sharia is for the preservation, establishment, and protection of human life. And so, what I want to talk about is the issue of problem solving in the Muslim community and on serious issues. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a clear example of a social and communal problem, and then how it is addressed institutionally, and that is in the issue of orphans and zakah. And so imagine that a child has lost their parents, uh, which could mean, obviously death. But even if they survive childhood into adulthood, okay, do they receive education? Do they come into adulthood where they're able to participate economically and, go on and establish a normal life? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, command that zakah is payable to orphans is an institution, okay, to help ensure that the orphan who is a child of the community, okay, is preserved and able to be established into a normal life. And then one of the side benefits of that is that they don't become a permanent burden on the community even as adults. Because imagine that if they don't get established, like through education and economic participation and get their lives together, then they can become just permanent beggars in the community, and you could have a whole group of them, and that gets into then the issue, which unfortunately Muslims commonly do, which is ignoring problems. Okay, and here's what happens. Okay, you ignore one problem. You have a sector in the community, okay, like converts are the most obvious example. Okay, when we became Muslims, we lost our people and our society, and we are alone in the world. And mashallah, the community is doing nothing, okay, for 50 years now. But that leaves us then, instead of being in a stable and positive condition of well-being and able to contribute to the community and to the future of Islam, which alhamdulillah, we're very able to do, but instead we are living in broken lives. In fact, until a huge percentage of converts just leave. Okay, but now imagine that the Muslims ignore this, which they've done for 50 years, and then ignore the issues of youth, and ignore, the fact that the masajid aren't set up right, and ignore the problem that you don't have good, qualified program directors in your masajid, and ignore the fact that you don't have a leadership council, and ignore the fact that you don't have like a mass communication medium, okay? So what happens is you end up in a situation where you have systemic problems. And any community or society that allows itself to go that way is doomed to collapse. And when it collapses, it takes down everybody. Okay? That's what when scholars talk about like a collapse of civilization, it means that important sectors of the society and important institutions and important functions have been left in a decrepit state, until it affects so many people and so many other institutions that the entire society collapses. Okay? And I'm afraid that that is kind of the condition that the Muslim community is in here in the United States. Okay? So now the idea of, taking collective responsibility for things, all right? So I mentioned that these things fall under the objectives of Sharia. And Muslims spend all their time thinking about salah and dhikr, okay? And you don't think about the dysfunctions of your community and how important it is to commit yourself to solving problems. And Rasulullah ﷺ has mentioned that the story, and this is usually in reference to al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, but the principle is the same, that there are two groups of people who boarded a ship, and one is on the top deck and one is on the bottom deck, and the people on the bottom deck want water, and so they decide that they're going to make a hole in the bottom of the ship so they can get water. Well, if the people on the top don't stop this, the entire ship is going to sink. And so in the same way, when Muslims ignore problems, eventually your entire community sinks. Okay? It falls apart. So now, Rasulullah ﷺ has said, إن الله في عون العبد ما كان العبد في عون أخيه. Okay, that Allah is in the support and aid of a believer or a Muslim as long as he or she is in the aid of his brother or sister. And so the idea is that you don't walk away from any Muslim who's having, a problem. Part of being a Muslim brother or sister means you stay with them until the problem's solved. So now, what about those conditions where the problem is beyond you as an individual? Then what Islam requires is that you collect enough people to get the support until there's an actual solution. And then if it's beyond that, and it's actually a common, repetitive problem, like the long list of problems that converts face, then you have to have a community institution to solve it. Okay? And this even under the fiqh of maslaha, that when there are problems that severely threaten some people in the community, like converts, then it becomes fard, obligatory on the community, to fund the institutions that solve the problems. Okay? And so the idea that Muslims have about, a convert program means, like a halaqah where converts talk together or learn Islam, that is not what converts need. Okay? Converts can take care of our own education. We've been doing it for decades. We have to have serious solutions, and these solutions have to be funded in the community. Okay? So, and the example then, honestly, is the Prophet's community in Medina. The Sahaba were converts. The Sahaba lost their people. The Sahaba had problems that threatened the well-being of their lives. The Sahaba made 3 hijras to find solutions. The Sahaba emigrated to Medina and established institutions to solve their problems. And that is exactly what converts have to have today, and that is the fiqh and the sunnah of problem solving in the community. Okay, I just laid it out for you. Okay, Assalamu alaikum.